Hello, Dr. Peterson. A lot of your work, a lot of your lectures recommend the audience tackle life with a lot of attention and intention. And, in my kind of personal gateway drug to philosophy has been more Eastern philosophy, and like the Bhagavad Gita and the work of Alan Watts and Taoism. And what I noticed, I may be wrong, but this is a common theme in Eastern philosophy, which is more passive, non-action, don't make as many plans. I wonder how you reconcile that and how you are reconciling that, because you mentioned earlier in previous lectures that you've read the Tao Te Ching. How do you reconcile those two different views?
Well, I think first that the Tao Te Ching in particular isn't about inaction, it's about minimal proper action. And it's also about minimal proper action after a tremendous amount of sacrifice, right? So the sage that's speaking forth in the Tao Te Ching has already let go of almost everything that he needs to let go of. And a tremendous amount of what you're reading in the Eastern philosophies is predicated, I think, at least in part, on the idea of sacrifice. There's lots of things that you're grabbing onto, like the monkey, with the jar, that's actually causing your misery. And so sometimes letting go is the right way of moving ahead. But to me, that ties into this idea of sacrifice. So now whether there's more than that, whether there's more intentionality in Western philosophy and less intentionality in Eastern philosophy, I'm not exactly sure. One way of mediating between those two was formulated, at least in part, by Carl Jung. He pointed out that the archetypal figure for the West died at 32. And so to some degree, the outgoing, extroverted, let's say, nature of the West is a consequence of its youthfulness in some sense, its useful ethos. And that the East, Buddha died at a fairly ripe old age. And even in the Hindu practices, if I remember correctly, in many Hindu temples, there's a lot of erotic sculptures. An idea is something like, if you can't get past the damn erotic sculptures, it's not time to go into the temple. But it's more than that. It might also be that if you're young, it's not time to get past the erotic sculptures. So maybe there's a moving forward into life in youth and a letting go in the latter part of life. And that was Jung's way of mediating between those two traditions. I think they're tightly aligned with regards to the importance of sacrifice. It frequently is the case that it's your desire, Maya, let's say, your desire that's causing your suffering, right? And so there's an emphasis in Buddhism, even more than in Taoism, I would say, on letting go of what's making you miserable. But you remember, the thing about Buddha is that he got enlightened under the Bo tree, right? He basically stepped into the city of God. He stepped into nirvana, and he could have stayed there. But he chose to come back because he decided that he had a responsibility to rectify suffering in the rest of the world, that it was not sufficient for him to be enlightened while everything else was left in a state of insufficiency and suffering. And so I wouldn't call that inaction,
It's I've made the mistake myself. It's inaction versus non-action. I actually had to look up non-action.
Yes, that's good. The Tao Te Ching does a very good job of distinguishing between those two, because non-action is the minimal necessary action to keep the balance between order and chaos proper, right? The yin and the yang. And the Tao Te Ching is very, very emphatic about this. You detach and you watch. And when it's time to intervene, you intervene minimally, without a lot of arrogant self-propagandization, and you tap. And if you do that properly, you hardly have to do it at all. And it's as if you're doing nothing.